You know what I watched the other night?
What'd you watch?
Hot Frosty.
Hot Frosty?
Yeah,
I don't even know what that is.
It's on Netflix. Lacey Chabert from Hallmark Christmas.
Yeah.
She did a Netflix Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And kind of a real life Frosty, the snowman kind of movie, where somebody carved a really handsome snowman and she put a magical scarf around him and he came to life, and it was silly but cute, but it was Christmas. But I'm just admitting,
like hot Frosty, like Frosty. Attractive Frosty.
Yeah, like Frosty was a hot dude,
stud.
And the dude looked like he was 26 years old. He was chiseled. The dude was chiseled. And then we looked up his age. He was 39 years old. I'm like, dang, he's chiseled at 39.
I need to get chiseled at 32.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, well, anyways, I'm just admitting that right here. So, how was your weekend? I know.
It's healthy.
I was quiet. I was being quiet about it.
My weekend was good. Jones got sick. He's still not feeling great this morning.
It affects the weekend, doesn't it, when you have your kids are sick?
Sick kids, man. You just feel bad for them.
Yeah.
I slept with them last night just because I feel bad for them.
And
hit us with that intro, Tim.
Hey, by the way, you are listening to the 61st Minute, a podcast of Community Bible Church, and I am with my co-host, Nick Kerouac, and my name's Tim Homa, and we just get the joy of doing this every week. So glad you are tuning in, and I think you're really going to enjoy our talk today with our lead pastor, Richy Fisher. So check it out.
He talks about hope.
Hope.
You know what I think about whenever I hear people talk about hope? Running into a Midwesterner at Walmart when you're in their way. Hope. Excuse me. Hope. Excuse me. Hope.
Oofta.
Hope. Hope didn't see you there.
Hope.
Hope. There you go.
Oh,
Hope.
man.
There's Tim. Oh. Hey, Tim. How's the mom? How's mom? How's the family? Hope. Enjoy the podcast.
We are so glad that you're listening to our podcast, but before we continue, we have an announcement to make. On November 3rd, we rolled out our new Live Beyond campaign, encouraging us to live beyond our own capacity in generosity, as well as God's mission for us and our church. In this Live Beyond campaign, we're making some concerted efforts to reach those in our community and make some much-needed upgrades to our East Campus. We've asked all of our staff, our members, and regular attenders to pray, plan, and make a pledge for what they can contribute to this vision. You're not going to want to miss December 15th because that's going to be a big celebration service where we will bring all of our pledges and one-time gifts that morning to Community Bible. For more information on this event, go to communitychurch.com/livebeyond. Again, that is communitychurch.com/livebeyond. Richy, as you were talking yesterday about hope, and you had the challenge of weaving in the Live Beyond within the context of the Advent. What was your biggest struggle? What was your biggest struggle in threading, kind of just tying that all together and bringing it together and incorporating not only the Advent series and the season with the word hope, but also in the context of the future of our church with the Live Beyond campaign?
Well, I think the original challenge was, Advent has been we started Advent about 3 years ago. It's been a really special time for our church. And I didn't want to hijack it with another thought of we're trying to, do the Live Beyond campaign. And so I did, that was my biggest challenge, is saying I feel like I'm hijacking a beautiful tradition that we created 3 years ago, and I'm going to layer on top of it. And oh, by the way, we're going to try to raise $1.4 million. It was Frankie who, even though I had written a sermon to try to wed those two together, and I said in the first service, my own journey of this is not an overlap or hijacking. It's connected to, and it always has been connected to. And it was Frankie who said, hey, because I always ask staff, hey, what could I adjust? And I asked you, Nick, Tim, I ask you, Ed, Frankie, Chris, and then there'll be church members. Anything unclear, anything I need to adjust in between services. So just for the audience out there, if you want a better sermon, go to the second one because I've corrected usually what I screwed up in the first one.
Do not watch 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
watch the 10:30 service. We will be posting the 10:30 service on YouTube this week.
It was Frankie who said, hey, one thing I would tell you, don't apologize for connecting these two thoughts together. They are already seamless in Scripture. I felt that, but I didn't know if that was translated. And so that was kind of my biggest challenge is I had to overcome, I'm not sabotaging an advent on hope by talking about living beyond ourselves and giving back to God.
Well, my favorite quote that you had yesterday was when you made those connections. You said the local church is the hope of the world, or, well, at least the method of delivery of hope, right? Mm-hmm. So God's one mission plan in Scripture that we see is the local church. Mm-hmm. He started it, right at the end of the Gospels into the book of Acts, and then that's what spread the gospel throughout the world. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you said when you invest into the local church, you're investing into hope for our community. Mm-hmm. I thought that was unbelievable.
Well, it's showing what you're putting your hope in, and that was when I started writing this. I had some time to write this one, several weeks, and sometimes that's good and bad because you write it and rewrite it and rethink it and rewrite it. But what I felt really spiritually as I prayed about it is what my actions that I live in my daily life show the world what I'm putting my hope in. And a couple of weeks ago, I really did sit down and write, what's a default in my life of what I put my hope in? And so I shared yesterday number 3, number 2, and number 1. Now, there's number 4, which could be religion. Sometimes we put our hope in religion and think, man, if I just do all the check boxes and stuff, that my hope's in that. But it was people and then myself. But my default is I put my hope in money. And if I'm putting my hope in money, I am not giving it away. Mm-hmm. I'm giving it to me because that's the only thing I can hope in. And so there was where the natural is when what I do with my money, what I do with my relationships and how I treat myself tells the world where my hope is.
What I thought was interesting, you were talking about kind of the mid-level hope that we have, and I never really thought of it that way, the way you put it yesterday, but a lot of times we use the word hope when we're leaving a lot of room for what am I thinking of? The
uncertainty
word? Uncertainty,
or failure.
Error. Yeah, a lot of room for error. And it's fascinating because it really is. Like if someone says, hey, do you think, your team's going to win today? Well, I hope so. Okay, do you really have hope in that they're going to be victorious? Well, I'm a Razorback fan, so not really, Yeah. So, but it's one of those things but when I truly say, hey, I have hope in Jesus, or I have hope that God's mission plan is the local church, well, if we truly have that hope, we're not just leaving room for error going, well, I hope Jesus is real, or, I hope the local church is going to make an impact on community. It's saying, no, my hope's there. And I'm going to volunteer in it. I'm going to be a part of it. I'm going to be a part of that community. I'm going to give to that mission plan. That was what really kind of changed it for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so many people live for the hope and not the hope for. I think, Nick, what you just said is so important because we do live from I hope I can pay my bills. I hope my family can get along in the holidays. I hope that, God is real. I think a lot of people live that type of hope, and it's when you get into the reality of who Jesus is, and that what Richy said, I thought, Richy, what you said yesterday, the church is the hope of the world. It really is. It has to be. It has to be, because it is the foundation. It is the groundwork. It is what's needed. All throughout Scripture, you see that the hope that we put in Jesus is not a hope so. It's a hope for eternity. It's a hope for forgiveness and grace. It's a hope for life change. So I agree wholeheartedly with the direction of where you went with your message yesterday, Richy. I know that it was a challenge, but if people see, and this is what I hoped out of your message, and I prayed for yesterday for you, is that people see the importance of Community Bible in the River Valley and what God is doing right now in the church. They will have a hope for this community. They'll have a hope for reaching lost people. They'll have a heart, and it will spur them on to want to reach people in this season, especially because we all know this, that people most often go to church 2 times a year, Christmas and Easter. So this is the greatest opportunity we have. It is low-hanging fruit. It is the greatest opportunity. It is the time where you can invite people, and most often people are like, yeah, it's Christmas, love to go to church. They love Christmas carols, they love tradition, and I think what you said yesterday in light of Live Beyond is the most important thing, because we're investing in the future of the kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, this church, and on November 3rd, I actually had somebody who had tuned in online who was sick, and they started feeling better, and so they came last night and told me, hey, I went online, watched your service. I didn't hear the November 3rd, so I went back and watched that. They had a few questions, but we sat and talked about why the money to the physical building and stuff. And this facility here is a canvas that we paint this picture of hope on. It is a tool that we use to introduce a large number of people to the hope in Jesus. This is the platform for that. It's not the only one, but it is one of them. So you think about over Christmas, why wouldn't we want to position this church to be this excellent mechanism that we can introduce people to Jesus on? So maybe for the first time, they come to this church and they hear about true hope. Because you said something, Tim, about hope and this mid-level hope. We cloud eternal hope in our everyday use of hope, and we leave room for error. I heard a famous person, they were talking to him about faith, and I'm not a real religious person, and what do you think is going to happen when you die? And this person said this. He said, I've tried to live a pretty good life, and I hope at the end the old man upstairs will put that into account and will let me in. See, that's everyday common hope. And when your hope is there, there's room for it. It might not happen. So we get to introduce people to true hope, that when you put your hope in Jesus, it's a certainty. It's done. It's going to happen. And so as I was doing all the research on this, there's a derivative word for hope, or a parallel word, and it's trust. That the hope that you find in Scripture is, I trust it will happen. How can I trust it happen? Because Jesus said it would. God's Word says it would. Therefore, there's no room for uncertainty. It's going to happen. So then go back to the building. It's that foundation, that platform where we get to introduce people to that. But the other thing is, then, I'm a part of this church. Nick, you said it 2 weeks ago in your message. Why wouldn't I want to invest in this thing that is giving out hope to people? Well, I do.
It's giving out hope to me.
Well,
yeah.
Every day I have terrible days, and I come to this church and the staff and the deep relationships. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Well, I want to invest in that because my hope is not in my money sitting in a bank account. Can't be.
I can't help. Naturally, this Advent season, it always brings me to a place where I think of, Tim, you and I talk about it all the time, all the great holiday traditions, the family, the warm feelings we have in the house and stuff like that. And when we start talking about specifically the gifts that we receive from God through Advent, this week being hope, it really makes me think of the folks that don't get that, the widower, the widow, the person who doesn't have family nearby, the folks like that. And Richie, I think this is what you said at the end of your sermon. I wrote it down different, but if I did write it down different, then mine's better.
It probably is.
But you said, hope is not the light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is life through the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And, I think, man, I think the last 4 weeks, someone at least connected to Community Bible. I think we lost about 3 people. And I'm just thinking of those families that lost a loved one in the holiday season. And you get so deep and down on yourself, and you can't help that there's people out there that are like, they're talking about hope, they're talking about peace, they're talking about joy, they're talking about love. I don't feel that. Like who are those people that I don't feel that? And how do you grab a hold of that hope and live your life like you were saying, where maybe they don't have as many rich person problems like you talked about yesterday, and they're literally just trying to get by day. What's a hopeful life look like through that?
I think it's that final challenge. I mean, if we would all just introspectively, which Tim's got a psychology background, so he would be better at coaching people on this, but look at where I'm placing my hope. So if you break the definition down, just the common hope, it's a desire for my situation to improve. All right, so we'll make it very simple. So I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. I need prayers. They need prayers, and I hope that they have a great season. All right, that's pretty much not going to happen. So we'll go to next year. I hope they have a good season. Okay, so if I could just look in the areas of my life that I typically put my hope in, so let's make it personal. I want my situation to improve, my family, my finances, and all of that. Okay, what am I relying on then? What am I trusting then for that to happen? Well, is it people? Is it me? Is it wealth? So making it through every day. Okay, making it through every day. We'll just use that. Well, what am I hoping on? Am I hoping on the government to help me? Am I hoping on someone else to give me money? Am I hoping for my health to get better? What am I hoping in? Unless our hope is in Jesus, nothing else is going to get us through that. I mean, it may improve because we pick ourselves up and we get a job and we work hard. But ultimately, my situation eternally, so I can fast forward to that and go, well, what am I relying on there? Is it me? Is it someone else? Is it religion? Well, it's got to be Jesus. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of you got to deconstruct what I typically put my hope in, and then go all the way to say, well, let's just talk about when I die. That's got to be in Jesus. Now, let me reverse engineer all of that and say, well, then he's the solution for everything else. If it's my eternity, then it's also my finances, it's my relationships, it's my health, it's everything else.
And that's what's so fascinating about the Advent gifts is when we let the world define them, mm-hmm. all of them are circumstantial. Mm-hmm. You can only feel hope. You can only feel peace. You can only feel love. You can only feel joy if your circumstances allow it. Mm-hmm. The gospel flips that upside down. It does. And says, you can have nothing and still have all 4 of those through following Jesus.
Yes.
And, when I think of when I worked at Arvest Bank before I took the job at Community Bible, that was 10 years ago, I was working through the drive-through. And there was a guy that would come in, and he always it was a different car every time. I mean, the nicest stuff, right? The sports cars, the big trucks, all those things. And he'd come in through the drive-through, and dude was never happy. Always a jerk, right? Just an absolute jerk face to me. or to anyone in the drive-thru, and God forbid you ask that man for his ID and he'll hit you with it. Do you not know me? Do you not know me? And so we would always try to, if we saw him pulling up one of his many vehicles, I'd go, oh, I got to go use the restroom, and then someone else had to deal with him. But then there was another guy who would come in, and he was broke for every way you can say it, right? Beat up old car that you're like, how did that thing start this morning? And he would come in, and he would be the nicest guy, just always in a great mood, just checking in, and he'd remember you. He'd ask how your family's doing, and I'm sitting there at the bank, and I'm thinking, man, I feel like, because I see this guy's account information when he makes deposits or withdrawals, and I'm like, man, I would be stressed out of my mind. I would be you can never tell. Guy's living day by day with every opportunity that he gets to be kind to people, and you can tell he's filled with joy. And it just reminded me what you were saying is even this pursuit of other things that we think will fill us with the hope, peace, love, and joy, we'll get there, and we will probably be very disappointed because it won't fulfill us.
Yeah, there's my best friend and I, we were out hunting, and we were just talking about when we, like, you first get married, and most first-time married people are always broke. And you guys can relate to this.
Because we're broke.
Well, when you were first married,
yeah.
We had nothing, my wife and I. So there's usually a dollar amount that says if we could just have this cash on hand, we would be fine. All right. So mine was $1,000 when we first got married. If we could just have $1,000 in the bank, worries are gone. Did you have an amount when you're in your family? You first got married.
Yeah, that was where we
about
were
1,000.
At. Yeah, about
Tim?
1,000.
I don't know if we had $1 more than we had a overall dollars, like a salary.
Okay,
that's
salary.
what we figured. If we hit this salary, we would be.
We probably did that. I think we were more that way.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
So you think if I make this kind of money, I'll have plenty of money left over.
Yeah.
Right. And so did that happen?
No.
Yeah. So what happens is ours was $1,000. Well, my wife graduates college. My job situation improved. Hers did improve, and our salaries increased. And we got that $1,000, and then our number changed. And we thought 5. And then later on, 10. If I could just, somebody would give me $10,000, I would have no worries. And as you get older, your income changes again, your situation changes. That usually is about 10 grand. And then my buddy and I were talking about this. You think $100,000. If just somehow I won a lottery and got $100,000.
I never went to 100,000. I always went to 1 million.
Okay, then
I always went. I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's true.
If I got 1 million, I'd still work, but I have enough to cover all.
There you
the
go.
other stuff.
So $1 million. You get to 1 million.
Yep.
So I've talked to people who had 1 million. Did you know they still have another number? So I knew a guy that he got his first million, 10 million.
Yeah.
If I just had 10 million. And then I know people, that have that, and 100 million, 1 billion. If I could get $1 billion, I could never spend. So what happens is the goal always, the monetary goal of salary, money in the bank, retirement, you never hit it.
I was talking to someone who, just some family friends, they're well off financially. And we're just having a real conversation and just talking about, man, it would be nice if I was able to fill in the blank, and have this, have that, have this, have that. And they stopped me. And they just said, you know what I'd give? I'd give it all away if my kids would follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And they had adult kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, in that instance, the fact that, granted, he's about to be 3 this week, but to have your kids involved in church and a family that loves Jesus and a community that loves you, they're like, I'd give it all up today if I could just get my kids in church.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some guys and women who, families, these guys, they make more in a year than I'll ever make in my entire life moving forward or even back. And so they're worth far more. And I know them on a personal level. And it's amazing. They don't have any more hope than I have, joy, peace, and love than I have. Their money didn't put them in another category of satisfaction in life. That all comes from Jesus. And we have to, but the problem we have to be careful of is that if I put my hope in Jesus, he'll give me everything I want. He's a genie in a bottle. I won't be sick anymore. I'll get that big house. I'll get all that stuff. And that's a false gospel that you see, kind of spin around. I read the verse and it's in there. I didn't spend much time on it. We may unpack it next year sometime. But he said, do not put your hope in wealth, which is uncertain, but put your hope in God. And then he says, for he will give you everything you need for your enjoyment. So there's a breakdown there that he will give you what you need, and he's giving it for your enjoyment. It's not, everybody doesn't get the same thing, but he will give you what you need if you put your hope in him.
Well, we are, like I said earlier, just a few more days away from Live Beyond Sunday. And we're praying that God, we have the hope that God is going to do some amazing things in the life of this church over the next 5 to 10 years. And whatever happens Sunday and moves over the next course of the next year or two, we're at a place now, I believe, that this is going to be a marker on the timeline of Community Bible. And we were going to look back one day and say, man, we were part of a church in 2024 that stepped up and said, we want to reach people for Christ, and we want to be a difference. We want to make a difference in the River Valley and beyond. And I think Sunday is going to be an incredible day, and then the following week we're going to celebrate what God is doing and going to be doing, and it's good stuff. It really is good stuff. And this week you're going to be talking about what? Rich, you give us a little trailer, a little teaser of what's coming up Sunday.
Well, we'll be doing peace next week. And I'll be sharing the stage with Frankie on dealing with peace, and we're going to kind of do the sermon. It'll be a little different because, we're going to be doing the Advent piece, but we're also going to this is where we're bringing in our gifts and our pledges to God. And so we're going to have a time of prayer as a church family, as individual families. Try to have a really kind of I don't know what we're calling it, but just this really impactful time of prayer and worship where we give these gifts to God. I don't want to draw too much of a parallel here with Nick's first sermon about, where the wise men came and they gave these gifts to Jesus. It's kind of what I want to feel next week is, my family, we've come together. We say, hey, this is what we want to give in a gift. We want to give these pledges to God and really have that moment where I'm really giving this to Jesus. This isn't giving it to Community Bible Church. It isn't giving it to the staff. This is really my heart saying, Jesus, you have blessed me and my family. I want to give back to you. And we wanted this really kind of impactful time of worship and giving this gift. And then we want to celebrate that at the end. So that's next week.
That's good.
I think when we have that trust, final words, I think when we have that trust and that hope in Jesus, it creates a level of peace where no matter what we give, we know that God is going to take care of us. He always will. He'll take care of us because we put our trust in him and we have our hope in him, and he never lets us down. And so as we're praying through all of that, that brings that level of peace that says, okay, it surpasses all understanding, but I have it and I trust him. So.
That's good. Purple Candle number 2 next
right.
Sunday.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So,
we'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the 61st Minute Podcast by Community Bible. Our goal is to release a new podcast every Wednesday reviewing what we discussed during our hour gathering the previous Sunday morning at Community Bible Church. If you don't have a church home, we would love for you to join us on Sundays at 9 o'clock or 10:30 a.m. live at any of our 4 campuses. Also, you can watch online or review Sunday morning sermon at communitychurch.com/messages. Again, that's communitychurch.com/messages. Tune in for next week's episode of the 61st Minute Podcast by Community Bible on main platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to your podcasts.